Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, the DA leader John Steenhuisen has now softened his approach to the president's decision to sign the BELA Bill. Yesterday, he was threatening that if the president signs it, that will risk the stability of the GNU. Today, he said it's normal for such policy offenses to exist in a coalition. But if the DA is so convinced that the president is violating the GNU's statement of intent by pushing ahead with the BELA Bill unilaterally, why is the party then staying in the GNU? The party's federal council member, Willie Aucamp, speaks to us tonight. Also on the show, the ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula will join me in studio to chat about the GNU and how the parties plan to resolve their policy differences and other issues. But first, my comment. So the DA seems to have, I think, softened its approach on policy disputes within the GNU. Remember when the president announced he would be signing the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill tomorrow at a ceremony at the Union Buildings? The DA leader, John Steenhuisen, released a statement saying the president would be violating the GNU's statement of intent by pushing ahead with this bill unilaterally and will be risking the future of the GNU in the process. And he said, if the president continues to sign the bill, that will have disastrous consequences for the GNU. And I think that was intended as a threat. And the DA probably realized that it didn't work, which is why the messaging today was so different. Or maybe in the meeting that Steenhuisen had with the president yesterday, the DA leader realized that the president won't be budging. Here's what Steenhuisen said earlier today.
Conflict over policy in the GNU is not necessarily an existential threat to the government. But that doesn't mean that we would not walk away under any circumstances. I set out earlier in the speech that the bottom line for the DA is that the economy grows and it creates jobs. If the GNU cannot or won't do that, then there's frankly no point being part of it. Indeed, if the ANC insists on taking the country down the path to economic ruin, it would be our patriotic duty to leave the government and to use our position in Parliament then, our 22%, to stop the slide into catastrophe. That's
what John Steenhuisen said earlier today. Remember what the president's spokesperson Vincent Magwenya said yesterday. He said, it's wrong to threaten the stability of the GNU every time that there is a dispute. And today, Steenhuisen even admitted that policy conflict isn't an existential threat. He said it's normal, especially in a coalition of this size. He even indicated that not every GNU disagreement needs to be met with headlines of, oh, the GNU is coming to an end. And yet, he is the one that did so yesterday when Ramaphosa announced that he will sign the bill. He released a statement saying, if you go ahead with signing this bill, this will have disastrous consequences for the GNU. Here's what else he had to say earlier.
I want to be very, very clear about something. With 22% of the vote, the DA cannot get everything at once inside the government. It would be undemocratic if we were to do so. So I want our supporters, old and new, to understand and accept that that is how democracy works and that is how coalitions work.
This actually reminds me of when cabinet was being formed. Remember those letters that the DA was sending to the president, making demands about the number of ministers and which ministries they want, right? And there were threats that if they don't get what they want, those positions, then that may mean the end of their marriage in the GNU, until the president had to put his foot down. Remember that scathing letter that he wrote to Steenhuisen? But now the DA on this BELA bill will be approaching the court after the president signs the bill, which is probably going to make things a bit tricky for Siviwe Gqube, who's the Minister of Basic Education. But she made it very clear that if the president signs the bill, she will implement it as the Minister of Basic Education? We had her on the show a couple of weeks ago.
I come from a political party that respects the rule of law and that understands constitutionalism on a deep level. And so we understood coming into the government of national unity that there were things or policies that we may not have agreed with the ANC when we went to the ANC government, when we came into the GNU. And that's, I suppose, the complexity, right, of such a governance arrangement. But at the end of the day, I have to understand what my oath says and what my responsibilities are as a minister. And as I say, luckily for me, I come from a party that has a deep understanding of what my constitutional obligations would be. And so if my political party decides that they would want to take the bill on review, ultimately I have to remain the Minister of Basic Education and do my job. The party entrusted me with this responsibility, and the people of South Africa are looking to me to not be partisan in the execution of my work, regardless of the fact that I come from a political party.
Which is a matured and I think a well-principled position to take. You are not a DA minister, you're not an ANC minister, you are a minister of this government representing all South Africans. So next up will be the NHI. Expect the same threats probably from the DA and then some retreats. The DA has now, I think, they've now tasted power in government and they're not going to let it go that easily. So the question we're asking you tonight is, what do you make of how the DA has dealt with this policy difference over the BELA Bill? And do you think these policy differences about the BELA Bill and the NHI are just teething problems, or do you think they can impact on the stability of the GNU? Please send us a WhatsApp voice note right now on 078-459-1897. Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you're sending the voice note from. And please keep them at 30 seconds. Alternatively, send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. All right, let's bring in the DA's Federal Council member, Willie Aucamp, who joins me now via Zoom. Willie, thank you so much for making time for us. So is it safe to say that as the DA, you have accepted that you have lost this fight in the GNU? Because the president will sign this BELA Bill tomorrow. Nothing has changed. And your next option will be to approach the courts. But the point is the battle in the GNU is lost to resolve this amicably as partners.
Good evening, Clement, and thank you for having me. This is not about winning fights within the GNU. It's about what is in the best interest, especially in this case, for our children. This is the Basic Education Law Amendment Bill, and it's got severe impact on children out there. So I think it is not correct to see this as who's going to be the first people to blink within the Government of National Unity. And just to make a statement, I think it is very important that the president and everybody else out there realize that the ANC does not have a full-out majority anymore. They have received 40% in this election, and they must work and cooperate with their partners within this GNU. Otherwise, in the future, they might battle to get things through. This bill has been agreed by Parliament before the elections and before the formation of this Government of National Unity. But there will be other bills in the future where the ANC will need its Government of National Unity partners. And we must therefore handle each other with respect. If you go and you look at the agreement that was signed, the statement of intent, in clause 19.3 of that statement, it was clearly made to everybody that there must be sufficient consensus on all matters within the GNU. Now, it is very clear that there are not sufficient consensus when it comes to this matter. Secondly, it was said that should there be disputes, there will be a dispute resolution mechanism that must be put in place to handle disputes that might be there. That did also not happen in this instance. So we believe that firstly, the dispute resolution mechanism should have been put in place so that we as members of this GNU could have ironed this out with each other and then hopefully persuade the president to send this back to the National Assembly due to constitutionality issues that we've got with this bill.
Yeah, which you've already done, because even Siviwe Kwagube has sent letters to the president. The DA has tried to say to the president, send it back to parliament, but clearly the president has decided that it is in fact going to pass constitutional muster. Why did John Steenhuisen, though, make threats that if the president signs the bill, it will have disastrous consequences for the GNU, only to admit today that not every policy conflict is an existential threat to the GNU?
I think we must first make it very clear that it was not a threat to leave the GNU. I think the person that is putting the GNU at risk at this moment is the president by unilaterally signing this when there are agreements in place that makes provision for sufficient consensus, firstly, and secondly, for a dispute resolution mechanism, which he did not follow in this regard. So I think it is the president that is showing a disregard and disrespect to his partners within this government of national unity. What can happen in an instance like this, and this is very clear, although we do not want to litigate against our partner in this GNU, we will be left with no other choice than to litigate and take this matter to the Constitutional Court. And that is also one of the actions that Mr. Steenhuisen spoke about from day one on this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the BELA Bill now. Next up will be the NHI. Are you going to make the same threats or even, suggest that you will go to the courts? Because it doesn't look like that dispute resolution mechanism that's supposed to resolve your differences actually works. Has it even been established?
It has not. That is the problem, and that is what we are saying here. In terms of the agreement that is there, it should have been established and it should have been able to handle matters like this. But the ANC and the president showed a disregard for the agreement that they've signed. And that is a threat to this government of national unity. Going forward, we must be able to know that we can trust our partners within this GNU. And if they show disregard, like they are doing here now, we must prevent it from happening in the future. And that is why we believe that this thing should be not be pushed through tomorrow, but it should be delayed so that the views of all the parties in this GNU can be taken into consideration and that there can be a show of faith from the president's side, because he is the one that is dropping the GNU with regards to showing that they trust him and that he wants to have their inputs as well.
But if you're so convinced as the DA that the president is violating the GNU's statement of intent by pushing ahead with this BELA Bill unilaterally, why are you then still staying in the GNU?
Clement, can you just imagine what the alternative to this current GNU is? The alternative to this GNU is having a government with the ANC, the EFF of Julius Malema, and the MK Party of Jacob Zuma. Go and have a look at the members of parliament that MK has now incorporated into parliament. The likes of Brian Molefe, Lucky Montana. It is all people that has been implicated in the Zondo report. Having those people in charge will be a disaster for South Africa. So the Democratic Alliance, we are the mature adults in this room, staying calm and trying to protect this GNU. This GNU must be protected at all costs. The alternative is too bad. And can you imagine what will happen with something like language rights, that we've got a problem and an issue within this bill, if somebody like Jacob Zuma or Julius Malema is in cabinet and can have a say about that? Afrikaans language rights and other home language rights will be trampled upon. It will be the end of that, and that cannot be allowed. So we've got to be mind over matter and take this GNU forward.
But Willie, isn't the reality here that you as the DA are now in power? You've actually tasted power, and it's going to be difficult for you to let it go. But you want to appear to be fighting from within, at least to your constituency, that you promised that you will fight the BELA Bill and the NHI within the GNU, so that they, sort of understand that we are getting into bed with the ANC to fight these things from within as well. The same party, by the way, that you have always said is corrupt and you would never work with. I mean, Helen Ziller told me on the show that the BELA Bill and the NHI are non-negotiable for the DA. In fact, she described them as red lines. She said DA negotiators made it very clear to the ANC that this is a red line for us. And yet here you are, as the DA, these policies are going ahead and you are staying in the GNU?
Clement, firstly, the DA is very used to having power. We've been running the Western Cape now for more than a decade.
Oh, you're at national level now. It's one thing to run one provincial government. It's another to actually have most of your leaders represented at national level in cabinet.
That is definitely not what it is about, to have people in positions. Go and have a look at the track record of where the DA governs, whether it's provincial or whether it's on local government. We've made a substantive difference to the lives of people, and that is why we are in this GNU, to make a difference to the lives of people. People did not by chance stop voting for the ANC. They lost their confidence in the ANC, and they gave the DA a clear vote of 22% of the votes in South Africa, relying and knowing that the DA do a good job where we govern. So that is what we must concentrate on. We cannot threaten, and as Mr. Vincent Magwenya said, Mr. Vincent Magwenya said that parties should not threaten the GNU every time that a dispute arises. This is the first time that a dispute arises. So he's actually the person threatening the stability of this GNU, but now he's accusing us of doing it. We are not threatening the stability. We must fight for the stability of this GNU.
All right, just before we wrap up, John Steenhuisen has also announced that he has asked his chief of staff to step down. This is the man, for some of our viewers who may not know, this is Roman Kabanak, the man that has tweeted that blacks are not liberals. He said, if you want to be a liberal party, it cannot be black-led. He has had anti-constitutional views. He called black people Bantu people, which was an apartheid reference, a word that was weaponized by racists during the apartheid regime. He said a gay singer, Freddie Mercury, died because of being gay. He has previously questioned or denied the veracity of the Sharpeville massacre, and yet your leader still went ahead and defended him until there was way too much pressure for him to ignore. What made him change his mind this time around?
Clement, I cannot speak on behalf of the minister. This is a ministerial affair, and he can speak on behalf of that. I have, however, been at the Cape Town Press Club today with Mr. John Steenhuisen, as have been the media, and Mr. Steenhuisen received the same question, and he answered it, and he said the following. He said that he has asked Mr. Kabanak to resign. He says that he takes full responsibility. He was not aware of all these statements that was made. And if he was, I can promise you now, he would not have appointed Mr. Kabanak. Mr. Steenhuisen is a politician that came out today and said, I made a mistake. I should have do a better due diligence. And his words were that he takes full responsibility on this matter.
Hold on, now, Willie, John Steenhuisen knew about some of the things this man has said. I know that because the media constantly has been asking him, how can you continue with the appointment of this man when he has said 1, 2, 3? And John Steenhuisen still went ahead and defended him. So it's not true that he didn't know some of these comments. And I think we can't allow that excuse to consistently be used, because even with Ronaldo Gous, it was a similar thing where John Steenhuisen defends him, and then there's more clips that emerge. Some of the clips the DA clearly must have been aware of, and then that's when the DA wants to act on the matter as if they have never heard, and they have never even heard from journalists, that these are the people and these are the comments that they have made.
Clement, as far as I'm aware, these allegations came to light about 2 weeks ago. I might be mistaken, but it was way after the minister appointed this person. But I would again like to refer you to the minister. This is a ministerial matter. It is not a DA matter. The DA does not appoint people as chiefs of staff in a minister's department. But I would also like you to think about this, and that is that when did all these issues come to light? It came to light when the Minister Steenhuisen, said that he will issue, or that he will lodge a forensic audit into 492 million rands of money that got lost. And all of a sudden, these attacks came to him. I think there's a concerted effort to try and get the attention away from the work that must be done. And Mr. Steenhuisen said that clearly today, that he takes full responsibility for this. He has asked him to resign, and we must now carry on and do the job. Come and show me where we have in the past had a politician that says, I take full responsibility. I take my hat off for Mr. Steenhuisen for saying that.
I'm a little surprised that as the DA, you're saying you're not commenting on ministerial issues, because I remember back in 2017, you as the DA criticized the then Minister of Finance, Malusi Gigaba's appointment. I think it was Professor Chris Malikani, if I'm not mistaken. It was his economic advisor. Bear in mind, that's a ministerial issue, and yet you as the DA, you called that special advisor controversial. You are questioning the views that he has shared in the past and how he has said we can radically transform the economy. So in the past, you've always been comfortable with commenting on the ANC ministers' ministerial affairs. But now suddenly, because it involves your ministers, you want to step back and say that's not a conversation you want to have.
Clement, I've got no problem in saying that this appointment is definitely been controversial. I think Mr. Kabanek is a controversial figure. And I must be honest with you, I had never heard of Mr. Kabanek before this issue arose. I'm not a guy that is active on social media. So for me, it was news, and I think for a lot of people out there. But we do not shy away of saying whether something is controversial or not.
Okay.
Why we are referring this to the minister is that it is the minister that knows what the job description is of this person, what he expects of this person. This is a chief of staff. It's not an advisor on a matter. You cannot have an advisor on a matter that knows nothing about that matter. Yeah. This is a chief of staff position that is an internal position within the ministry, and therefore the minister can much better reply to that than I would be able to.
Yeah, I suppose the point I was trying to make is that just the lack of consistency sometimes. I mean, there's the DA member of the provincial legislature, Henriette van Heesteen, who has been struck off the roll by the legal council and suspended by the Legal Practice Council. He was busy serving as a lawmaker in the Northwest Legislature. Why is that the case? When you held the same views you held about John Hlophe?
I cannot comment on that because I'm not aware of that. I will go and look up on that. So unfortunately, I cannot comment on that.
My producers told me that they got in touch with you 2 weeks ago. You told them that the matter is being investigated by the DA legal federal position. That's what you told the producers. So how do you not know about the matter?
No, I did not tell that to them. This is the first that I hear of this matter. So I think you're mistaken. What I also think you are doing is disingenuous. This interview was regarding BELA, and I think you bring other stuff in. But let me tell you this as well, Clement. I think what you should do in the future is go and have a look at what happens in other parties and go and have a look what the DA does. I can give you an example of Mr. Malusi Boy, he was a member of the Mayoral Executive Committee in Cape Town. He was arrested yesterday. What did the DA do when those allegations came to light? We immediately suspended that person. We instituted disciplinary action against him. The mayor of Cape Town, Mr. Jordan Lewis, fired him as a member of his mayoral executive committee. He subsequently resigned. But that shows you that the DA acts when there are problems. Go and show me what the other parties does. They don't do that.
Yeah, Willie Aucamp, I appreciate your time always. Thank you so much for coming through on the show. I really appreciate it. And yes, I'm always going to take my chance and ask other issues, because when we ask the DA to come and talk to us about a member of theirs who has been struck off the roll, they don't come on the show. When I have an opportunity to talk to you or anyone else for that matter in the DA, I'll give them an opportunity to give us their right of reply. But always appreciate chatting to you, Willie Aucamp, who is the DA spokesperson, but also the member of the DA Federal Council. After the break, Fikile Mbalula, the ANC's Secretary-General. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the government of national unity is working and is here to stay. He's even added that the GNU is not a compromise, but a commitment to address challenges facing the country. The ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula joins us in studio this evening to talk about the GNU and other matters. Secretary-General, thank you so much for making time for us. Welcome back to the show. You've been here before.
Yes, thank you for having us. And you have won today to force me to come, but I'm here.
Only the viewers know how much I harass you and other people to come on the show. All right, let's start with the issues around the GNU, because that's really the topical issue today, the BELA Bill. How do you manage your differences? Because I think that's very important if you are serious about maintaining the stability of the GNU. How do you manage your differences around policy? Because now you've had John Steenhuisen release a statement. The presidency spokesperson says, stop threatening us. And then they're doing a back and forth. Do you have a system in place as the GNU to deal with your differences?
We are advancing. Yesterday, the president met with the leaders in the GNU, and there's a way forward in terms of that level of leaders, where in which the clearinghouse has been agreed to. So whenever there are issues that need to be dealt with, will be dealt with at that level. The Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, will convene that particular clearinghouse in terms of interaction of political leaders at the level of the GNU. But we have always explained and maintained, but let's repeat ourselves again. The way of government functioning is not replaced by the statement of intent and the GNU arrangement in terms of the executive and the constitutional functioning of the executive. So in this instance, we understand that perfectly as political parties. So people may try this and that, but it doesn't replace example. That's why Kwarube's statement as a minister is correct. And in this particular instance, whenever there are issues that need to be tackled, will be tackled in the context of that clearinghouse, but also at the level of organizational level, political parties. We will also have to knuckle down to define mechanisms of interacting going forward, because these issues are many.
Yeah,
and they are in a bilateral nature, not affecting everybody. You may find that we are 10 in the GNU. Not everyone has got a problem with the BELA Bill, for instance. It's only one party, so it requires a bilateral. So in this instance, it must be understood in that context.
Yeah, please help us understand what role the Deputy President is going to play. Is that the role that is going to involve the dispute resolution mechanism? Because in the document of intent, there's a mention of the dispute resolution mechanism where when you've got differences, that's where you can take the issues and that's where they can be resolved.
Yes, that's where things can be resolved. And yesterday, as they met, they've agreed on this mechanism. That is there in the statement of intent. As the Secretaries General at the level of the party, we also have got to play our part to interact and reinforce that mechanism. So we have not done that. So since we've been negotiating and finalized negotiating and all of that, we have not begun to talk about how do we resolve differences going forward.
Okay, so what's the plan now to deal with this policy difference? Is it going to go to the Deputy President? Or, because the awkward thing now is the DA says they are going to take this to court.
It's fine. The GNU is not a melting pot. As much as we have established mechanisms, there are points where in which we may not agree at all, and therefore it does not replace the right of a political party to challenge the issues. The statement of intent does not say the ANC will suspend its policies. That must be understood. The statement of intent does not say the DA will suspend its policies and that will negotiate the melting of policies in the GNU. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. We will not back down on BE, triple BE, and then our agenda of transforming this country as the largest party in the GNU. So, like I've said, let me repeat myself again and again, and I've said it even today, GNU is not a melting pot. It's not a melting pot. We coexist for the interest of the people to advance the interest of the people, to deliver for the people. And there will be issues that fundamentally there is no crossover. And that must be understood. If other people understand it differently, let's get down to discuss. And we will do that also with the DA. And then coming to the studio here, I think I missed a couple of calls because I also had a briefing. I was at Lutule House and so on about other matters of the organization and so on. So I will talk to Helen about some of the issues that we need to talk about. We talk all the time, coalitions and all of that, because we are full-time in the organization and we coordinate party organizational work. So
the document of intent also says that as the parties in the government of national unity, you guys will agree on, in fact, it says we will have an agreed policy agenda. And I hear what you say, because existing policy is existing policy, and the ministers in government are constitutionally obliged to implement government policy. But the GNU says that you'll sit with political parties in the GNU, you will discuss on which policy is actually agreed on. has that process being done? Because then that means then all these parties are here to help you implement your policy, but you're not in charge as the ANC. You're in charge together with other parties, and it's only fair that you actually include some of their own interests.
The clearinghouse and the mechanism has been activated yesterday, so let's see how it pans out going forward, and that is what is important. So it does not mean, as the ANC, we are saying we will not engage with anyone and so on. What I'm saying, I'm talking on behalf of the ANC, and I'm saying that we did not sign for the suspension of ANC policies. Remember, when we came to the GNU, the BELA Bill was done. It's in the table of the president. And that the president can only reject that bill if it is unconstitutional or any other legal permutations that he would have considered that require him to refer the bill back. And the fact that he has announced that he's ready to sign on Friday, it means there's nothing wrong with the bill. At an operational level, we will still have to address the fears and concerns of the DA in particular in relation to this bill. So it can't be a burden largely of the GNU, but it is an issue of a bilateral matter in relation to DA and the interest of its constituency.
Yeah.
And these are the issues that we need to tackle.
So what is your assessment of the GNU so far as the African National Congress? I mean, I think it's been relatively stable. The ministers from the DA, Gayton, McKenzie, they seem to have really stepped up.
We are going on the 26th of this month of September, will be 100 days since the GNU was established. And I will make our statement public through the president, and we will also address the nation in relation to the GNU. There are good signs that we see from the GNU led by the ANC. First, the foundational principles have found expression. There is stability. The country is really looking and having higher expectations, and there is hope in a situation where there was hopelessness. And then everybody's optimistic about the GNU, and practically issues and things that were stuck in the economy from the 6th administration that were plans to be implemented, and some of the pipeline policies and all of that are being implemented in the context of the GNU. So there is stability in terms of the country, and we can see things are happening. I mean, the biggest show is the load shedding. Taking from the last administration going forward, we seem to be getting stronger and stronger in terms of dealing with load shedding in the country. Bigger pronouncements from the budget votes, commitment to implement and fulfill the issues from the 6th to the 7th administration. Good public policy pronouncements on the part of the GNU. Stability all round. Over and above that, South Africa has embraced the GNU. That's what is important.
There was once a report, and I think you did release a statement on it, that the ANC was concerned about some of these ministers overshadowing the ANC ministers. You did release a statement, if I'm not mistaken. You said that's not necessarily the case. No,
we didn't release a statement. We said that it is important that it must be understood that the GNU led by the ANC is a full expression of South Africa's body politics in terms of what has happened in May. And therefore, it must be understood as such, and that ministers can express themselves fully. And I even made a statement that any minister who delivers and does the work in the GNU and doing it very well will get our support as the ANC, irrespective of where they come from. And that's what is important, because we mean it when we say that we came to the decision of the GNU for the interest of South Africa, for South Africa's stability, and to advance unity of our nation. And this is what is important.
So to be clear, there's no concern that the ANC ministers are being overshadowed by their new colleagues from the other parties in the GNU?
Why will ANC ministers be bothered about their colleagues? Each one of them have got responsibilities, and the ANC have got key ministries as a party, if you were to look at that in that context, to deliver to the people of South Africa. So why are you looking at others? If they're doing a marvelous job, and there have been some of the over-exaggeration and to a certain extent and all of that, ministers will be held accountable by Parliament in this regard, where they are missing the boat. And ANC ministers and all other ministers will not be holy cows in this regard. The question is, one, expect ministers to pull through and implement what is expected of them to implement. And you guys in the media are giving ministers platforms. And besides, ministers have got to be dynamic and deliver and give hope to our nation in terms of service delivery.
So I'm trying to understand, Mr. Mbalula, what the ANC is willing to compromise on. Because obviously, yes, this is the ANC-led GNU, as you say, but you are not in charge as a party that got overwhelming majority at the polls. And the document of intent, how I understood it, one, it said you and the other political parties must have an agreed policy agenda. And then it goes further to say that the parties must also decide on their compromises. So what are you willing to compromise on? Because the DA has a constituency, so does the Freedom Front Plus, so does the IFP. They have their constituencies who have expectations of these parties as they are part of government. They can't be here to prop up the ANC and help the ANC implement ANC policy. So when do you accommodate these parties that have helped you, in fact, even elect your president in Parliament?
It's not a question of accommodation. It's a question of what are those parties pursuing in this regard, in the context of the GNU, and what are the issues that they are putting on the table for negotiations and consideration. Because from where we stand, most of the policies and most of the legislation that needed to be passed has been passed. BELA Bill is not something new, and it has been there. And that is why it's on the table of the president. There is a National Land Transport Act that has got to deal with e-hailing. It's on the table of the president up for consideration. So they've gone through the process of Parliament. So in this particular instance, if you say bills must actually go back to Parliament to consider A, B, C. It's matters that will have to be discussed in the long term. But at the end of the day, parties are free to bring issues on the table for engagement in the clearinghouse and to actually discuss, and openly so. So you can't say because BELA Bill has already been on the table of the president, it defines the fact that the ANC is not willing to listen to others. The fact that we are in the GNU, it's an overwhelming, not just desire, principled approach of the ANC to work for South Africa and with everybody.
So you are willing as the ANC to help implement DA policy in the GNU, or IFP policy, or Freedom Front Plus policy?
It depends what is that policy, and therefore what is it that political parties are bringing on the table, and we'll deal with it as we get to that point.
What are your non-negotiables? Where's your red line? So what are you not going to compromise on? So if the DA comes and says, for us, it's triple BE, because I'm mentioning this part in the document of intent because it says every party has to make compromises. So you also, as the ANC, you have to compromise on something. It can't be a win for all, for you in your case. You can win others. Maybe you'll win the BELA Bill, NHI.
We have not won the BELA Bill. The BELA Bill is already in the system. It went through Parliament. Yeah. What I'm saying to you is that we don't know what the DA seek to introduce in the new administration. We will deal with that when it comes to the table.
Okay, but you are willing to make some compromises?
I can't say that we are willing to make compromises. Compromises are born out of a process of negotiations and engagement.
Okay.
And that is what is important.
Yeah, okay. We'll have to wait and see, because the document does say the parties must compromise. Would you consider a spokesperson for the GNU? Because part of the problem has been from, and I'm basing this on what I've heard from some of the political leaders, is that when there are disagreements like that, sometimes political parties speak, they do media interviews, they start attacking each other, they say things that don't help in stabilizing and strengthening the GNU. I mean, I had you, and you remember when I had you and Helen Ziller on the show just after the formation of the GNU, and that exposed that you guys don't see things the same way. So would you consider having a spokesperson, someone who speaks on behalf of this GNU, who would maybe have to consult with the SGs of all these parties before they speak, just so that you control the narrative and the messaging?
It's not the first time South Africa has gone through the GNU. The only difference now is not institutionalized in terms of the, like it has been in the transitional constitution. In this particular instance, it is not. So, but nonetheless, it depends on the statement of intent and what we have agreed to. And it doesn't need the spokesperson, because once you have a spokesperson, it means the DA ceases to be the DA. The ANC ceases to be the ANC. And that is not the spirit and the understanding of the GNU, and at the same time, how we understand GNU in its totality, because it is a GNU with elements of supply and confidence, because you still have got the DA in parliament and the ANC, and you've got DA and the ANC in government. So it is GNU with elements of supply and confidence, where in which you can agree on certain issues and not agree on others, and then you vote together on those issues in parliament to pass bills and all of that, initiate bills and all of that at the level of the executive and so on. That process has not begun. So we have started now with yesterday, and even at the party-to-party level, we will have to, because that clearinghouse that is led by the deputy president at that level is going to allow issues to be brought on the table and then to be discussed. And that is it, so that we've got some understanding when we get into the executive and so on, because that's a different ball altogether, because you may want to initiate a bill which is not in your ministry. And then how are you going to do that? So you can bring it to the fore, and then that is it. So in this particular instance, it doesn't warrant a spokesperson, because political parties and their identity and their agenda and policies must still be carried through in this context.
How are you managing the GNU within your alliance and with your alliance partners? Solima Paila was here on Tuesday, and he continued to make the statements that he's made before, that the ANC has sold out by working with the DA. He said, in fact, he believes, and he sticks by what he said, that President Cyril Ramaphosa is leading a neoliberalist faction within the ANC. How are you guys managing this within the tripartite alliance? Have you not discussed these issues? Because he says there was a meeting, and the SACP was clear in rejecting the proposal even by the ANC that this is where we want to go with the Democratic Alliance and the other political parties. So where does that leave your relationship with the SACP, if this is how they characterize you as the organization?
You know, Clement, the SACP and the General Secretary of the SACP is not an opponent. It's not DA to the ANC or any other political party that can be an opposition. So we'll have to meet. It's of no use for me to say to South Africa, what Soli said is not truthful. People won't believe me, because we sit in the same forums. Why Soli have decided to attack the ANC in public, the same as he will deal with opponents of the ANC in the revolution, it boggles my mind. And I'm not going to be tempted to go through that route. We've got processes in the alliance of resolving our differences. This GNU and where it started in terms of its risks, we have looked at all the options and the risks. It is not a matter that the SACP did not entertain. You can go back to their own statements. But I'm not a spokesperson of the SACP. I've got respect for Soli. I'm not going to lose that respect because I'm playing to the gallery. The SACP is not an opposition to the ANC. It's not. Why? What will the ANC gain by saying to South Africa, a leader of the SACP, characterize him, denigrate him? The same organs, the SACP and the ANC, will be here asking South Africans to vote for them going forward. At that time, I would have denigrated Soli as a leader, denigrated Ramaphosa as a leader of the ANC, playing the man rather than the ball in the party, and confront the ANC head on. In the past, in the alliance, we have had these things, playing themselves out. These ones are ultra-left. It ended there. It did not resolve anything. We've got platforms, the political council, we've got the secretariat. We are meeting next week, Tuesday. We met last week. We are preparing for the APC. We've got proposals. So we will get there. So when we leave there, let's talk about, to South Africa, what do we say? We have said in our initial discussions that we still need to come together and define the strategic content of this GNU between us, the SACP and COSATU. So the SACP is an important ally of the ANC. So there is no need for us to attack each other in public platforms and so on. And then let me underline that by saying that it does not mean that the SACP is the branch of the ANC. So if they differ with the ANC on matters, they can, including expressing themselves, because the ANC itself embraces the principle of dissent, including within its ranks. So it is acceptable. We have, in different epochs, had differences, and we have expressed ourselves to those epochs, on those differences, successive conferences of the ANC and all of that, and then they were adopted. The person who initiated the strategic perspective about transition in South Africa was Joe Slovo from the Communist Party, the General Secretary. That was it. And then we debated back and forth. We were so militant about it in the Youth League led by Peter Mugaba. But there was decency there and decorum. So the party can differ, but to labels don't help.
To be clear, when the ANC proposed this to the alliance and said this is where we want to go, did the SACP reject that?
No, it didn't reject. The SACP didn't reject, it engaged. And then the SACP said we are for GNU with characteristics of a supply and confidence and supply, but at the same time minority government. That's what the SACP argued. COSATU said to us, yes, you can have GNU, but we've got reservations with the DA. Soli Mapaila, as the General Secretary, in the talks about talks when we started, he said, we need to safeguard political power at all costs, with everything. Now, if I say those things in public, that we didn't meet, we met, it's not matured. It's not good for us as the alliance. And then what will it enrich in terms of our agenda of the National Democratic Revolution? It will not win us votes. It will not make people to have confidence in us. It will simply project us as a bunch of losers who are rattled and disorganized who don't understand protocols of how to engage with each other.
Hasn't that ship sailed, though? I mean,
it has not sailed. But the fact of the matter is that we are solid. We will get together around it, and that is it.
Yeah.
So the point of the General Secretary of the party is noted from where I'm seated. We will engage with it. And then you have seen even in the ANC, I'm the only person who have been quelling Comrade Soli and say, stop, don't go there. Even in the party and the ANC in general, none of our cadership is excited about this.
Because sometimes you guys talk to each other through tweets.
No, we don't.
Didn't you respond to him on Twitter?
We didn't respond to him through Twitter. Twitter is a medium of communication. And if you go through those tweets, it's a repetition of what I'm saying to you right now.
But did you speak to him before you tweeted?
I don't have to speak to him before I tweet. I was talking about the alliance. I'm talking about him having gone publicly and basically chastised the ANC, including using derogatory labeling words against our president. And basically he says, President Cyril Ramaphosa is not the president of the ANC. He's basically leading a big faction. He said that to one podcast, a big faction of neoliberals. And therefore the ANC has been taken by neoliberals, and then and that is it. So I simply said, no, bring those issues to the table. I've never attacked the SACP or Soli.
One of the questions,
and if I were to attack him, basically, I will be attacking something that I don't know, because I don't know what made him to say that.
Yeah, one of the questions,
except the fact that he doesn't like the DA, and many ANC people also don't like the DA, and the same as the DA people don't like the ANC, but we have all found ourselves in a GNU.
But there's still some SACP leaders who are serving even in the GNU.
Yeah, but they are not serving there as SACP, they serve there as ANC. So don't say to comrades who are ANC and who came through the list of the ANC, Soli might have argued for them to be in cabinet, but they are there in their, first and foremost, in their name and right as ANC leaders. And remember, the party is not a party outside the ANC. It's a party within the realm of the liberation movement, which is led by the ANC. And then the Communist Party becomes a political party within this alliance from the context of being the vanguard of the working class. Now, the ANC, it's an omnibus. It has got communists and everybody in it. And everybody have accepted this, and we are all committed to what brings us together, which is the program of the National Democratic Revolution led by the ANC, which in this instance has suffered a setback. So Soli is a leader of the South African Communist Party, General Secretary. And therefore, he's got the right within that alliance to express a view that might not be in agreement with what the ANC have decided.
In the past, as the ANC, you've wanted to pass a bill that would allow you to expropriate land without compensation. You've got the MK Party that say, we're willing to work with you, the EFF willing to vote with you there to change the constitution. Is it something you are willing to consider?
We don't know. They can come with it to us and explain what they are talking about. During Jacob Zuma's time, we couldn't cross that hurdle when it had to happen. He was there, he was the president. So let's hear what he wants to say now to us.
Because that's still ANC policy, right? That was passed at the, was it 2017?
It is ANC resolution.
Expropriation of land without compensation.
It is a resolution of the ANC.
So if you've got people in parliament that say, we're going to help you pass this bill, you have no excuse not to go for it.
Well, we don't have an excuse not to go for it. It is an ANC resolution. ANC resolutions and policies will be led by the ANC. And should anyone come to the party to fulfill those resolutions with us and support us, we are happy to do that. Some of our people, some of the people we are with in the GNU may even reject those policies.
The DA has already said they'll never accept that.
Of course. If others come to the party, we'll move forward with them as we initiate the policy implementation process within the legislatures and the executive.
Are you willing to lose the DA in the GNU by voting with these other parties to pass the bill to expropriate land without compensation? Because the DA said they are going to leave. That's where they draw the line, unless that's another threat.
The DA will not be lost to us. It would have been their choice to leave and guide us.
Would you be okay with that?
It's not a question of being okay or not okay. What we understand of the GNU is that others may make their own choices as we move forward in this particular instance. So it depends what will actually move them. So in this particular instance, we are firm in terms of working with everybody that is within the government of national unity.
Okay, and just to be clear, so I understand you, no matter how much noise the DA may make, is because this is ANC policy, if there are parties that are willing to support you, you will take this through in Parliament.
The ANC will initiate its process of policy implementation in the executive and then also within the legislatures. That is what it will do. And then when we do that, we will inform everybody, including our GNU partners. Those who want to come with us will come with us. Some will come with us who are not part of the GNU. It's up to them to do so. But we must understand that we don't just follow the music and dance for it. We've got to understand how the producer arrived at that beat and so on, and why is it so attractive and so on. And then we get along with it to be part and parcel of the package of selling the music. So in this particular instance of the GNU and parties that are willing to work with us, they must approach the ANC if they are willing to do so. The past is the past. Where we were and what happened is over. We are here now in the terrain we are in, which is of the GNU. Let people put things on the table and we'll attend to them.
All right. Fikile Mbalula, thank you so much for coming to studio to speak to us.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us.
And thanks to you for watching the Thursday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back on Tuesday next week at exactly 8 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Cheers.